the next several hours. And Nigel has drawn an opening rack of AAFIPRZ.
Yep, and this is Chris Leip joining commentary after my quarterfinal loss to Jesse Day. So he's on a, well, I guess they're all on a run.
Chris had an excellent quarterfinal. He played a beautiful disconnected 9 of tangences for a double-double for about 90-something points, and it was enough to win that game, but unfortunately for him, Jesse Day got 2 out of 3 against him. We've got a few other commentators who will be coming in throughout the afternoon as well, including some of the other participants who were eliminated in the quarterfinal matches. Nigel opens with Fizz for 30 points. And Quackle approves, unsurprisingly. Nigel has a knack for making the move that Quackle thinks is best a lot of the time, or maybe Quackle has a knack for making the move that Nigel thinks is best most of the time.
Yeah. And even though he has the 2 A's in the leave, the A's will come in handy because they parallel the F and the Z. So, yeah, strong play for Nigel as usual.
Now Brett has Gyno he's setting up with an EAN leave.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nice parallel play, making FY and ZO.
That'll score a bunch of points.
And it looks like Brett is also in sync with Quackle on this one. Not surprisingly, both of these guys are playing top-level Scrabble.
Yep, and it's generally the case that the first couple moves are ones that Quackle analysis is pretty spot on. There's not a whole lot of various positional things going on. You know, the opening play, it's the only thing on the board. So, you know, there's less to discuss about, you know, is Quackle correct, or, you know, are there other considerations?
So one interesting thing that Quackle came up with was GYNAE in the same spot was another possibility, which just play off the E but leaves a slightly more balanced rack of 1 vowel and 1 consonant. It seems like it's a pretty small difference between those plays. So Nigel is setting up a Aspirata, which he could have played through the I if Brett had not taken the spot. But now he's going to have to settle for something different, unless he has some crazy 9 through IN or something like that, but it looks like he does not. So yeah, it looks like Quackle likes the simple PA making Azo here, which is a logical and simple play.
Yeah, sets up the S for spin.
He sets the S in a couple places. You have the pause hook as well, so that if you do get an S-ending bingo, it is likely to fit on the board here. Brett's being a little cheeky with his tiles there. But what is that actual tile that he is covering up? Do we have a
Brett, if
read
only.
on that?
Brett's playing if only.
Oh, Nigel drew Karates out of the bag. So that is likely going down, unless Brett has an L to make Lazo, which I don't think he does, but I didn't actually catch what his last tile was there.
Yeah. Nigel's going to give the karate chop.
The score is currently 53 for Nigel and 39 for Brett. 53 to 39, not 55.
So yeah, this is a bit of a difficult position. There's not the J column is tough to use because FY is going to block everything. You need an N to go down off of Azo, or an L to go down off of Azo in the F column.
So there's some interesting choices here. Quackle is looking at Banjo making GO, which is a very natural play to play through these tiles, but has the downside of exposing the J to the double word. It also has a very interesting choice of Hafiz, just dropping the HA, which even though it leaves letters that you usually wouldn't leave behind, there is some good synergy with that BEJNO leave, and it also just keeps the board very tight for the opponent. This is something that the Quackle has them simulating almost exactly the same. It's often interesting when that happens, when you have plays that are really very different in nature, but by the numbers, it seems to think it's a very close call between them.
Yeah, and Brett's opting for banjo, which is a really natural play.
And this is a good example of why you shouldn't be afraid of making a play like that. It may be, especially when your opponent has just fished off PA, that his best play is going to be a bingo elsewhere on the board. So in fact, doing something like this is good because it gives you a chance to keep scoring off of the big point tiles while the opponent's putting the bingos down and keep up the pace with him. So banjo takes Brett up to 66 points, and Karate's is going to be 79, it looks like, which will take Nigel to a total of 132, is it? Yep.
And conveniently, they're setting up a bunch of lanes for disconnected nines, so we can expect some impressive stuff coming forward.
Nigel has just drawn a blank. And Brett has gotten a little too vowel heavy. Well, that's something he can work with here. He's got heavy tiles, but he can score enough with them that he can play through this without having to lose too much time. And he set up Heifer already, which will play on the D1 spot, which is a very nice play for both scoring well and ripping the board open, which is what he wants to do when he's down.
Yeah, after Heifer, Brett's going to be basically a tempo, a half a bingo down, so it's not that much of a deficit to worry about. It's easy, especially against Nigel. But anytime your opponent plays the first bingo early, it's easy to kind of get demoralized. But it's certainly premature for that.
Mm-hmm. But now this creates a very interesting question: is does Nigel have a triple through that H? It looks like it would be a little bit tricky to do so. But if there's anyone who can find it, it's him. It is not coming to me if there is one. Oh,
hushedly?
Wow. That is impressive. Well, we have to be very quiet. We're making a joke about the actual word. Well, it looks like he sees it.
Yep. That's so well. It's premature to get demoralized after the first bonus. After this one goes down, it might be.
Brett did draw Caerule out of the bag, but is it even going to go down? Or however you pronounce that word, Caerule. Hushedly is going to be 176 points here. And as expected, Nigel, the #1 player in the world, finds the best play.
So yeah, Brett's best move now is going to be to panic.
Almost assuredly he will not do such a thing. Brett has also played just about perfectly to this point, and if there's anyone who knows not to get into a panic at a time like this, it is a former world champion. Brett won the championship in 2016. Nigel, of course, has won the championship 3 times, is the only player to win it more than once.
And for that many points, it's worth adding on another 5.
It's going to be 313 for Nigel Richards to 98 for Brett after this play comes back acceptable. 313 to 98. Now Brett has a very tall order, being down by over 200 points against the best player in the world. But one thing I like to think about when it comes to Scrabble is that anyone can win when you get the tiles. It is particularly when you get down or when you get difficult situations that you prove your mettle as a Scrabble player. And in fact, Nigel's just drawing a little bit of a difficult rack, so that may slow him down a little bit. We'll see what Brett can do to get himself back in this game. Looks like Quackle likes the simple JEU, which makes a lot of sense. It both scores off the J and leaves a very good bonus leave of ACELR. I really love leaves like ACELR because they have a good shot of hitting a bonus, but they also have some scoring potential so that you have insurance even if you don't hit your bonus. Also, the C makes your bonuses score higher.
There's still lots of spaces on the board to play bonuses. There's still row 10 hooking under PA. There's B column hooking after the Y in Hushedly. And then there's an open I. There's now an open U floater. The B and the A in Banjo. So, still plenty of opportunities. Brett would probably need to hit a couple bonuses in a row to make this a game, but
so that was 20 points for Brett, which is going to take him up to 118 now. Yes, Nigel has a nice play of up curl here through the U, which 2U word, which very nicely not only clears out a lot of his difficult letters, but sets up the up curl's hook so that he can use his S to score with a W possibly to the triple on the next turn. This is a very important thing. Oh, he's doing something a little different, though. Capel, interesting. Oh, and guess what? Quackle likes that one even better. So, yeah, Capel scores a little more, 24 versus 20. Also, leaving the RSW may be a little bit of a better leave than SW.
Mm-hmm. And even as up curl is perhaps more defensive, if you have the letters, if you have the equity, Nigel's holding an S, play Capel and just set up what you have. And even if you're ahead, when you're ahead by this much, almost 200 before Brett's bonus went down,
and Nigel's airwise now.
There's often not a reason to to reduce equity to play more defensively.
Airwise to take a front P hook for pairwise as well, but both P's are already gone, so that won't really be an issue. Of course, the natural spot to play this is ulcerates. There's a case to be made for playing it off the Y as well. The only reason I would really do that is if I felt it was the better board shape for making a comeback happen. Well, no, other way around. Nigel's doing it for reducing a comeback, I should say. But I don't think it's a big enough difference here that it's worth quibbling about. Just take the points. And that seems to be what he's doing.
Yeah, playing airwise vertically doesn't really, the ulcerate hook will still be open. There'll still be floaters to play through.
It's worth noticing they both have dangers. They both set up an I right next to the double letter and then the triple word. So neither one really is defensively perfect. But just take your points and let the opponent worry about it.
Mm-hmm. And after airwise, kind of the one of the natural plays is going to be vertically through that I down the H column. And once that goes down, then it's going to be relatively easy to shut off play in that part of the board. Like the lower the lower right is going to be exhausted, and then the lower left is can easily be exhausted through a couple
Nigel's
plays.
just drawn another blank, so it looks like Brett's chances of coming back have been just about demolished by that draw. He's thinking about playing QIN, setting up the S hook to the triple, which is a very gutsy thing to do with one S unseen. That's often what you want to do in these situations, is create the very volatile hook where there's only a single tile that goes there, so it becomes a kind of luck fest of who gets to that one tile. It creates more chaos for the opponent. It's 422 for Nigel to 190 for Brett. Oh, Dona's a very nice scoring play that he played right there. That is 39 points. Where is this Devon play going? I'm not quite sure of seeing it.
Yeah, when the
to the triple on the right.
One of the things we're looking at the Quackle simulation. One of the things is that with the scores this far apart, it doesn't really matter what Brett does. The win chance is so slim, so the Quackle simulations don't actually tell you very much. They get to be not very accurate when the scores are this far apart.
Yeah, they're giving a 0% win chance for Brett anyway, so they're not a useful ranking of the plays necessarily. But Donut does score quite a bit of points. One thing it was recommending was Devon to the right-hand side, which doesn't score as much, but it does shed the difficulty to use V, and also create some openings on the board. Any way you look at it, though, it is a very uphill battle for Brett at this point.
Even more than uphill, he is trying to climb that giant wall in American Ninja Warrior, except it's about 80 feet high.
Yeah, it looks like this is unlikely to be his game with Nigel already holding the second blank. I don't know that Nigel actually has a bonus now. He does not seem to, but it is chances are that he will bonus soon enough. And yes, a very simple play here is just Milt taking out one of those triple lines and leaving himself a good rack where he is very likely to bonus. It is important to take that type of thing out because he could have, for instance, QINS there, which would help Brett get back in the game. So it's nice when you have plays like that do what you want on the board and also play off your duplicate tiles, leaving NOT blank. He's thinking about Mitt leaving LON, which is a little unusual. Usually you would think that the LN is less good than the NT, but it might have to do with the remaining tile pool. And in fact, Quackle seems to agree with him that it is just a hair better to play Mitt.
Yeah.
That is a curious one. It's probably because of something to do with what the remaining letters are.
Yeah, that's the case L, and there's a couple T's in the pool, so that makes sense.
Now, it's happened, both of those T's are actually on Brett's rack, but of course Nigel has no way of knowing that.
Yep. And I don't know, Brett may put some of them back in the bag. It's a dire rack without much
Brett
play. It
is very vexed right now. In fact, he probably should play the play vexed on the reason that it best describes his situation. But no, he traded. And this actually does make a lot of sense because trading prolongs the game and also gives Nigel a chance to draw some of that crap. Of course, Brett does not know that Nigel has about a dream rack right now. And so Brett's still at 229 points, but Nigel's actually up to 449 now after his Mitt play. Well, Brett's rack did improve. It's not quite where he wants it to be yet, but
I'd hate to see what it was if it didn't improve. It's drawing some runes and some hieroglyphic symbols. That might be worse.
Now we're probably going to see Nigel play the best possible play of Enflower. He's already got it lined up, and it makes Spine and Azon, and also keeps the board pretty tight. No surprise here. Nigel finding the best possible play and setting it up and let us all admiring him knowing this before he decides to grace the board with the word.
Yeah, he has about 15 minutes he can mug for the cameras, because we know that's what Nigel's about.
It is nice, though. Those are easy spots to miss because there's no big bonus squares there. And in fact, the blank is even on the triple letter. And yet, it actually is the highest scoring bingo on the board, playing in Flower there. Sometimes I wonder if Nigel is intentionally delaying to keep all of his plays about the same length of time so as not to give his opponent any tells.
That seems like a thing he might do. You know, he has this kind of persona that's like, oh, I'm just playing the game. There's nothing special going on. I just make the play what I saw, but
looking at Brett's face, he's not happy right now. But you know what he has to think about? This is a best-of-5 match. This is one game. And even though it has not gone his way, he doesn't have to worry it. If he can win 3 out of the remaining 4, he will still advance. Losing this game by 1 point, losing it by 200 or 300, it's the same deal. Spread doesn't matter here. Only who wins the first of 3 games.
Unless they draw only once. If they draw twice, then spread again doesn't matter.
I thought that they were doing replaying of ties. Do they not do that?
I don't know, actually.
They used to do it back in the U.S. Championships when they did best-of-5 matches, but I'm not sure what the rules are here.
there were an exceptional number of draws in the main part of the tournament. And the draws certainly came into play into determining who made the knockout stage.
Yeah, it was very surprising. Usually when there's a player who has a tie, it kind of takes their spread out of consideration. But because we had so many people, I think 3 of the final 8 or so, who had a half a point in there, spread actually still did make a difference for them. So let's see. We've got Nigel on the move. And Quackle prefers Bravi, and Nigel has Bravi set up on his rack. Why do we even bother checking Quackle?
Nigel prefers Bravi, and Quackle has it set up on the rack.
Also, look at that. He's got 2 spots for Bravi, and the one at E column sims very slightly higher by about 0.6 or 0.7 than the one on the D column, and that is indeed where Nigel played it. You wonder why that is.
I feel like the random number generator that is sit behind Quackle is also behind Nigel.
It's hard to tell because normally you'd think you want to block that O spot because it's a more dangerous scoring spot. But I guess you're also setting up the I down at the bottom, and it's hard to say exactly.
Yeah, it's probably the Q's still out, so that might be the difference in some of the iterations Quackle went through. It saw Brett may have the Q. Who knows?
Makes sense. Yeah, the Q is a bigger concern now, especially with not as many scoring tiles that can hit the C column there, or the 3 column, I guess. We've got a little bit of a funny thing where the numbers and the letters on the side of the board here are opposite what our computer program has. So
9 tiles in the bag.
There are 9 tiles in the bag now. And it's a 551 for Nigel after scoring 20 on that last play. And Brett plays Agave for another 18 points to take him to 271.
That'll leave 5 in the bag. As we count down to the merciful end of this game, from Brett's point of view.
Well, if you believe in the law of small numbers, then Brett is likely to get a lot of good tiles and blanks and triples in the next one, right?
Yeah.
So he could say that maybe Nigel made a mistake in using up so much of his luck in the first game of the series when it's only worth 1 win.
Life would be interesting if luck were a finite resource. Nah, I won't take this 9-timer. I might need it later.
Oh, there's a good point that the X was the other big scoring tile in addition to the Q, so that's another reason for this slightly better placement of Bravi. It is a point that I think a lot of players would be more concerned about closing down the bonus lanes by playing Bravi in the other spot, but Nigel probably correctly evaluated that the chance of a Q or X play was much greater than the chance of a bonus there. So 12 points for Vino for Nigel. Oh, wow. Nigel apparently didn't get the high Quackle move this time of Vor at D8. Or maybe Quackle got the wrong play. That's true. But Vor is weird because it leaves 2 I's, 2 N's. But I'm sure that Quackle had its reasons. But if push comes to shove, I'm probably asking why Quackle is wrong rather than asking why Nigel is wrong. And Nigel is setting up something. Does he see some sort of 9 or something? Yeah, that's another good point Harshan is making here next to me, which is that Nigel has a point of, in trying to remove any tells whatsoever, always putting all of his tiles together, not having gaps between them, as we see, for instance, Brett already has OXO set up separate from his other letters here. Nigel doesn't want to give any of that kind of information to his opponents either.
Yeah, I generally keep my letters in alphabetical order on my rack, and I sometimes wonder if, my opponent can maybe tell what leave I have based on whether I'm taking them from the right or the left side of the rack.
If you want to be careful about that, you should reshuffle them before you actually put the word down on the board.
Yeah.
I've also known some players who just put their tiles all different directions, orientations, upside down, sideways, this kind of thing, just to create chaos. So Oxo is a natural scoring play there. Interestingly, Quackle likes playing GO on right below the AG and Agave to set up a stronger play for the X. Maybe also because this has the downside of allowing AXE hooks that can score a lot off that X. But again, it's basically academic at this point.
Yeah, that moves Brett up to 306. He's still 257 points adrift.
Do we have any updates in the other game?
I'll run out.
So Brett's up to 306 now to Nigel's 563. And Nigel has a nice scoring play of Minnow underlapping Axe there.
Yeah. That play does not actually score less, despite the word's meaning.
Musical joke. Chris here was a music student a long time ago before he got into competitive Scrabble.
Yeah, I majored in saxophone and composition in a past life.
So again, I think this is one of these cases where Nigel knew he wanted to play Minnow a while ago, and he's just keeping the pace even no matter what.
Spends 2 minutes on every move, no matter what happens. Yeah, it'd be interesting to do a statistical analysis of how long Nigel takes for each move to see if it actually is the same amount of time per move, no matter how obvious it is.
It is interesting. There are different strategies on this. I mean, you can say there's an advantage to taking the amount of time for every move. There's also an advantage to moving very fast and leaving the opponent less time to think on. So yes, Minnow was best for 40 points, taking Nigel to 603. Wow. I think at this point, Brett's biggest concern is making sure that Nigel does not double his score.
That'll be an interesting challenge. I don't think Nigel can do it because Brett's going to get a reasonable number of points for the Q.
Looks like QIS up at the top was better. But he wanted to set up GI, hoping to hit that spot or at least force Nigel to take it out. But Nigel's going out anyway. Unless Nigel decides it's better to play TI first.
It may be. TI is going to score a lot of points.
It looks like Edit does come out higher on the final evaluation, though. It's just a matter of doing out the math of if he plays TI, how much Brett scores for his best play, and subtracting the tiles, all that stuff, which I'm sure that Nigel can do flawlessly. And he correctly just goes out with Edit, which is best. I believe Nigel played a perfect game.
Yeah.
And finished with 628 to 332 as the final. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, Nigel hits the big 9-timer, and that takes him home. And he's won the first game of this 5-game set.
Yes, he has. So we're going to take a short break and then be back with Game 2, where I believe we will probably be switching to the other series and watching the game between Kevin McMahon and Jesse Day. I don't know that we have a result yet on the other game. They're still in progress, but we will let you know about that as we do. For the moment, we are going to go offline for just a few minutes until the next game is ready to start.